Hello, my name is Constable Shank. I'm a Pennsylvania State Constable. During the fire, I was driving home. I noticed a plume of smoke arising from a property on Roosevelt Avenue. I live on Roosevelt Avenue, so it was my way home. When I got there, I looked and I saw a fire burning in the carport next to the kitchen door. I got out of my vehicle, I approached the house, saw that it was burning. When I looked across the street, saw a lady on a cell phone, one of the neighbors, asked her to call 911. As she called 911, I attempted to gain entry into the house. 2 or 3 minutes later, the carport was fully engulfed. The fire was spreading rapidly through the house. There was a dog in the front window. I used my baton to break the front window to try to gain access to the dog. The dog decided when I broke the window to run away. I then attempted to go through the front door, which I couldn't do by myself. Went around to the side of the house. The windows were approximately 6 foot off the ground. I did break the window out with my baton, and I did hear a lady in the room calling for help. By that time, Officer Adam Tankersley appeared on scene. We went together, we spoke to some neighbors that were standing by. They offered ladders so we could put ladders up to the window to gain access to the windows. We then went around the back of the property, broke windows out at the back of the property, which we assumed was the lady's bedroom. We could hear her screaming. We went around the front of the house. The two of us took the front door. We were real low trying to look in under the fire. The fire at that time had totally engulfed the ceiling of the property, and it was just too dangerous for us to enter. We went around back to the side again. By that time, Detective Rux and Officer Ziering also appeared on scene. Wasn't a few minutes after that, then that's when fire and EMS appeared. We did everything we could to try to gain access to the house. The flames were just too hot. The smoke was just too thick. On a personal note, it's pretty disheartening when you can hear someone in there calling for help and you just can't reach them. And the smoke was so thick and so bellowy that there was no way we could gain access to the property. In fact, if we would have, there probably would have been a fatality. One of us would have probably perished in the house as well. So we had to wait for the fire company to come in and do their job, and they were able to remove the female from the house and take her to the Lehigh Burn Center.
I'm Officer Adam Tankersley. During that time, I got the call that there was a house fire. When I got on scene, Constable Jeff Shank was already on scene, trying to make contact, trying to get into the doors. Attempt was made to get into the front door. We were able to kick in the front door. At that time, a dog came out. We were able to get the dog to safety. Detective Rux was taking care of that. Then at that time, Constable Shank and myself went over to, it was the east side, and we heard a female yelling what was believed to be her bedroom. Attempts were made to make contact with her. We could not see her, we could only hear her screaming. We broke out her bedroom window on the east side and the south side. Attempts were made to go in. Gear, vests were removed by multiple parties. Myself, Constable Shank, he moved his gear. We went in approximately like 2 feet into the window. Couldn't breathe, couldn't see. All we could hear was moans and screaming. At that time, Detective Rux and Officer Ziering arrived on scene, managed crowd control. Started blocking everything off. That way fire could come and do the due diligence and help secure the scene, as well as remove the victim from the household.
So those windows, were those pretty far off the ground, or were they?
They were approximately 6 feet off the ground, 5-6 feet off the ground, within reach of batons.
But you were actually climbing in the windows?
We were climbing the windows, attempt to go in, but we didn't know the whereabouts of the victim, and I was ordered by Officer Ziering, who was my shift supervisor, not to go in due to sacrificing another body to potentially bring out that house.
And then firefighters arrived shortly?
Firefighters arrived shortly afterwards, EMS crew as well. They were able to remove the female. She was unconscious at that time, and they rushed her off to the burn unit in Lehigh.
As one of the first responders, I was third of us on scene. When I got there, Officer Tankersley was getting a dog out of the home. I grabbed the dog by the collar and took it over to one of the neighbors' home who was kind of secure it, and then went over and assisted with other scene control until enough officers and fire department were on scene so that I could break and start getting some equipment to help process the scene as well when the fire marshal did arrive.
I'm Officer Tyler Ziering. I'm a shift supervisor for Middletown Police Department. On the day of the fire, I arrived fourth on scene. When I arrived, Constable Shank and Officer Tankersley were trying to make entry into the house. For the purposes of their safety, I called them out of the house. That way fire could get there. They arrived at the time that I did about, and they were able to get the victim out of the residence. And at that point, we, as the police department, we set a perimeter around the house for a potential crime scene. And I was able to contact the fire marshal to have him come out, and that way they could investigate once the fire was controlled.
Mm-hmm. So was it pretty disappointing, you know, to have the victim end up passing away then?
It's always disappointing anytime somebody passes away when, you know, potentially you feel like you could have done something else or went above and beyond even more. But yes, it's always disappointing, but at the end of the day, I have to make sure the safety of my guys are safe and they're able to go home at night, and I accomplished that mission.